Hello, how are you today? Do you want to dive into a book that might just surprise you, whether it becomes your next favorite or one you might skip? Let's find out what readers are saying about it.
Danny Reads, who has 14 likes, says 4.5 The Knight and the Butcherbird is a fantastic dystopian fairy tale that follows Shrike, a small-town storyteller who is determined to keep a knight from killing a local demon, a demon that used to be Shrike's wife. Wow, I was not expecting to love this as much as I did. I don't know how the author managed to fit so much story, world building and intrigue into such a small amount of pages. The short story format is really where Alix E. Harrow shines. Thank you so much to NetGalley for providing me with an EARC of this book in exchange for my honest review. Spenkovich, who has 154 likes, says, while this deserves all the stars for the clever K.A. Applegate Animorphs reference alone, The Knight and the Butcherbird accomplishes so much in such a short amount of space I can't help but heap praise. Alix E. Harrow slays at the short game. The 6 Deaths of the Saint had me jaw-dropped and dazed for days, and here comes The Knight and the Butcherbird as if it were a sword. Harrow swings with powerful strokes of dazzling prose and world-building with finely executed twists and turns that will catch you unarmed and awed. The Knight and the Butcherbird finds us immersed in a world where knights come to slay thy demon, amidst a population withering in this desecrated world. But what are the demons? Truly, while harsh and haunting with a fascinating horror fantasy atmosphere, love is ultimately the heart of the tale. And sometimes love asks a lot of us. This is a quick read that is deceptively short, as the succinct world building and finely tuned plot feels far more sprawling than its page count, and Alix E. Harrow has once again left me in awe. At 6, I'd thought love was a full belly. At 16, I'd thought it was wildflowers and gooseberries and Mayapple's mouth on mine. At 17, I knew better. Love is whatever you're willing to kill for. Set 300 and some odd years after the apocalypse in the Outlands, where our narrator lives in a scrounging, desperate town full of sickly, short-lived people, where burials were more common than births. There is so much imagination and creatively tightly wound in The Knight and the Butcherbird. The post-apocalypse setting frames it a really uneasy atmosphere where it all feels balanced on the border between familiar and strange, and can have this fairly medieval fantasy style while still being firmly attached to our world. While references to the apocalypse and the diseases that lingered beyond the nuclear fallout like COVID might jerk you back out of the fantasy, it also grounds the story to force you to confront its messages as products of our own reality and our complicity in the world sliding towards this bleak future. It's a world with rampant disease, small enclosed cities with kings and religious fear-mongering to keep the people in line. A world where we marry young, we die young. The wheel turns. Death is as abundant as the clever twists and reveals Harrow deftly navigates, and this is a story where you just hold on tight and let it soar. She came to us as any apocalypse does, slowly at first, and then all at once. It's best to know as little of the plot as possible, so I'll make this brief, because the unfolding of mystery in this monstrous reality is the joy of the experience here. But the existence of the demons in the world is really well crafted. They say demons are spirits freed from hell by the 5th trumpet, along with cancer and microplastics, which slink into people's souls and change them into monsters. Yet in any realm of humankind where power is up for grabs, how much can we trust the popular lore? Especially one that involves the Bible and the Gun M. Deshawn old formula. Well proven. I also really enjoyed how storytelling is so important in this post-digital world, and the narrator serves her community as a storyteller to keep the lessons of the past alive. Yet the only memory she has the energy to preserve is that of her wife, now gone. And what to make of a world so harsh and cruel, as I loved May. As Sir John loved his wife. As God loved the world with blood on our hands. I had a blast with The Knight and the Butcherbird. And I've found that Harrow's short stories really work for me. It's a world that is brutal. Maybe. But that's survival for you, and one where change is frightening as the old is forever swallowed into the future. But one thing never changes, and it's the power of love. And I believe that is always worth fighting for. This was short, spectacular, and left me stunned. 4.55 The wheel turns. Sir John. So do we. Haley, who has 12 likes, says. I couldn't stop smiling, the euphoric, hysteric smile of a woman who has been lying on her lover's grave and has just felt the earth move beneath her. Once again. Alix E. Harrow delivered a beautifully written tale in less than 50 pages. I was crying so much at the end, and I could barely read the pages. This one is going to stick with me for a while. Lisa, who has 52 likes, says. I feel this author is hit or miss for me lately, but this one was definitely a hit for me. I want to read it again. This book follows Shrike's secretary, who lives in an Appalachian community called Iron Hollow. In a story set hundreds of years after an apocalypse, Shrike's community leader calls for help to get rid of a demon without realizing who the demon is. Can Shrike save the demon before it's too late? I was not expecting to enjoy this book as much as I did, but here we are. I loved the horror element of the book and am so glad I didn't look at the blurb for this book before I picked it up. I was looking for a filler, I guess, between audiobooks, and I am glad I picked this one up to maintain my reading streak. I do wish we got more of a happier ending, especially for our FMC. I feel so bad for her, especially with the ending that I know will reach her eventually. I don't want to spoil it for anyone, but let's just say it won't end well for our FMC. I was hoping for more of a happier ending for the Knight as well, but I almost cried at the end out of pity for him. Yikes, I wasn't expecting that either, but I don't want to spoil his ending for anyone either. I would definitely want a full-length novel for this concept, but I know the ending for this book would mean that the FMC wouldn't make an appearance if we do get something more out of it. I am definitely sad over that. I would definitely recommend this book if you're looking for a dystopian or post-apocalyptic novel that's rather short. I used this book as between book filler content, and I don't regret that in the least. I would read this story again in a heartbeat. Evie, who has 29 likes, says. At 6. ID thought love was a full belly. At 16. ID thought it was wildflowers and gooseberries and Mayapple's mouth on mine. At 17. I knew better. Love is whatever you're willing to kill for. This was a beautifully written short story, set in a uniquely dystopian future with a devoted sapphic romance and wild creature demons. And yet for some reason it never quite resonated with me. Considering this audiobook was only just over an hour long, it took me 3 sittings to get through it. Despite being often struck by how lovely the prose was, I was just never excited to pick it up. I still think that this is an interesting example of what can be accomplished in 40 short pages as a reading exercise.